Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, and normally I say that I'm the game master, but for this adventure, the GM was a friend of mine. He's a huge fan of Doctor Who, so he wanted to be the one to run this one. Also, before we get too into it, I just wanted to mention that if you've followed my channel very much at all, you've probably noticed that I struggle enough as it is with the English language, and today's adventure takes place in China, so I'm going to really be messing up a lot of pronunciations probably. I'm just going to apologize for that in advance, and I promise I'm doing my best. At any rate, before we get into the adventure, make sure you smash that like button, ring the bell so you're notified when we upload stuff, and make sure you're still subscribed as YouTube loves to unsubscribe people. We've got a great community here, and it is all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. All that said, let's dive in. So, the prologue to today's adventure takes place in August of 1937 when the TARDIS materializes in Shanghai, China. Out steps the fourth Doctor with his famous scarf and a mop of curly brown hair. With him is his gorgeous companion, who is a woman named Romana. She's a fellow Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey, and they are on a quest to recover the key to time, a powerful and legendary artifact used by the Guardians of Time, also known as the Great Old Ones. But they were diverted from their course by an unknown force, and the three pieces of the key to time that they already acquired are glowing and reacting to something in 1937, perhaps the fourth piece of the key. Which brings us to the main plot of this adventure. The Doctor, questioning whether two segments of the key would be located on the same planet, tracks this strange energy down to Nang Tao Airport, where he and Romana find an abandoned car with blood in the back seat and a knife made of an alloy which has not yet been invented on Earth. The Doctor soon determines that the tracer is picking up another source of chronon radiation, which is not related to the key of time. But since he can't locate the fourth segment until the interference is dealt with, he and Romana must remain to investigate. They trace the radiation source to Gongping Lu Wharf, where a policeman named Sung Chi Lee is about to move in on a beautiful Asian woman named Hsien-ko and her associate Kwok, as they purchase smuggled weapons from a German man named Vogler. Their unexpected arrival startles Lee into ordering his team into action prematurely, and Hsien-ko and Kwok escape. They also kill Vogler to prevent him from identifying them. Lee arrests the Doctor and Romana, and when the Doctor's fingerprints prove to match some found on the abandoned car, he charges them with the murder of the man from the opium den. The dead man now has been positively identified as the caretaker of the Palace Museum in London, which is impossible as he was spotted alive in London 1 hour before his body was found in Shanghai. The Doctor summons his robot dog, K9, for help, and K9 arrives just in time to save them from the bandits who materialize out of thin air in the police cells and attempt to kill them. The Doctor studies the stunned bandits and finds that they are all foot soldiers from the Tong of the Black Scorpion, and that they are carrying geomantic compasses embossed with the blood of a young woman. The Doctor modifies K9 to seek the signature of the chronon radiation he's looking for, and K9 leads him and Romana to an opium den. Kwok arrives to retrieve the Tong's abandoned altar, and Lee arrives in search of more clues. The Doctor and Romana steal a car to pursue Kwok, and Lee sets off in pursuit of them all. Kwok uses his geomantic compass to transport his truck elsewhere instantaneously, but the pursuing cars are swept up in the currents behind them, and the chase continues until a Japanese bomber strafes the city, and the doctor's borrowed car is buried under the rubble. Lee pulls the doctor out of the wreckage and arrests him, leaving Romana for dead. But Romana is rescued by Wu and taken back to his nightclub to recover. Wu explains that as a vigilante, he protects the ordinary people of Shanghai from both the Tongs and the corrupt government. Thanks to his friend Lucas C. Tun, he has learned of the Black Scorpion's apparent ability to cross great distances instantaneously, and he needs to know how this is possible. Romana agrees to help him, and she releases K9 from the wreckage of their car and sends him to inform the doctor of their new ally. Lee questions the doctor and comes to believe in his innocence, but he is still a stickler for law and order and has no intention of releasing the doctor until he has been found innocent by a court of law. Nevertheless, he concedes that only the doctor can help him learn how the Tong have learned to travel as they do. When K9 tracks down the doctor has him analyze the genetic structure of the blood on the geomantic compass and locate its source. K9 leads the doctor and Lee to a mansion outside of the city where they are captured while trying to break in and are brought before Hsien-ko, who recognizes the doctor. Knowing him to be dangerous, but believing that he can be made to understand why she's doing what she is, she orders Kwok to take him through the dragon paths and strand him in the Orkney Islands. By the time he returns to Shanghai by more conventional means, her plan will be complete. Kwok agrees to do so, but he's in love with Hsien-ko and intends to kill the doctor to ensure that he does not pose a threat to her. Meanwhile, Hsien-ko continues to lay the groundwork for her great plan, stealing Japanese military supplies and transporting them through the dragon paths, and using the creature she stole from the Palace Museum to murder a Japanese military official and thus delay the advance of a brigade which would have threatened her position near the Jade Emperor. The doctor and Lee are taken to a quarry where the Tong are moving their stolen armaments through one of the dragon paths, but they manage to overpower the guard and escape. Lee returns to the mansion to arrest Hsien-ko, but is attacked by the things she stole from the Palace Museum. The child-sized killer automaton known as Mr. Sin, and Lee barely escapes with his life. Lee flees back to the quarry where he hides aboard a truck and is transported to the Jade Emperor, the temple at the sacred mountain of Tai Shan. There he is recaptured, but Hsien-ko decides to keep him alive as a hostage to ensure the doctor's good behavior should he show up again. She has also stolen the TARDIS to ensure that the doctor cannot escape. The doctor returns to Shanghai where he finds his way to Wu's nightclub and is reunited with Romana. Wu has heard Kwok's name mentioned in a conversation about the movement of a Japanese brigade, and the doctor takes them to question the colonel in charge, only to be recaptured by Hsien-ko. Hsien-ko takes Romana to the Jade Emperor as another hostage, while leaving Mr. Sin to guard the doctor and Wu. But before she leaves, she tells the doctor that she is the daughter of Li Xianshang, former servant of Magnus Greel, and that despite appearances, she's over 65 years old. The doctor and Wu overpower Sin and their guards, but as they escape, K9 reports that he has detected the presence of uranium in their vicinity. The doctor realizes that Hsien-ko intends to use a nuclear reactor to increase the power of the dragon paths and works out how they are being used. The arrival of Greel's time cabinet must have irradiated the young Hsien-ko with chronon particles, explaining her slow aging, and the Sigma beam, which powers the cabinet, is still intersecting Earth's natural telluric currents, enabling Hsien-ko to tap into them and move instantaneously along the paths. If Hsien-ko focuses a nuclear reaction through the telluric currents, she will short out the Sigma beam and release 50 years of accumulated energy, enough to use the dragon paths to travel anywhere in space and time. But in doing so, she will cause the time cabinet to materialize here and now, creating a temporal paradox centered upon Hsien-ko herself and unleashing Magnus Greel upon the world of 1937. Romana is surprised when Hsien-ko allows her to move freely about Tai Shan, but Hsien-ko is convinced that her cause is honorable and believes that Romana will come to understand this if she is allowed to find out the truth for herself. Hsien-ko is using a nuclear reactor she has constructed from the stolen Japanese supplies to supplement the mountain's natural piezoelectric qualities, the very qualities which first drew the time cabinet to the temple of the Jade Emperor and convinced the Tong that his materialization heralded the arrival of Wang Xiang. Hsien-ko has promised the Tong that she will restore their god to them, but she admits to Romana that she knows the truth. Magnus Greel is a madman who deceived her father, and it was only due to the doctor's intervention that Chang died an honorable death. But if this is so, why is she trying to rescue him? As the doctor and Wu prepare to set off for Tai Shan, the doctor realizes that Wu is Japanese, and Wu admits that he wishes to overthrow the military officers who now rule his country. He and the doctor charter a plane to take them to the railway, which leads them to Tai Shan. And on the way, they and K9 fight off another attack from Mr. Sin, who uses the dragon paths to board their plane mid flight. When Mr. Sin returns, Hsien-ko sends a squadron of guards through the dragon paths to the airfield where the doctor and Wu are about to land. But Romana accompanies the guards and helps the doctor and Wu fight them off. Romana then leads the doctor, Wu, and K9 to Tai Shen, where they are all recaptured. Wu is taken to be locked up, while Hsien-ko shows the doctor her achievements and explains her true agenda. Knowing Greel to be an unworthy god who used and discarded Chang, she intends to avenge her father's death by torturing Greel for eternity. The doctor tries to convince her that she will only succeed in creating a temporal paradox which will destroy her, and urges her not to squander her impressive intellect on a misplaced desire for revenge. Hsien-ko, infuriated, orders Kwok to lock up the doctor and Romana as well. The reaction has begun and is now self-sustaining. Soon she will be able to intercept the Sigma beam and bring Greel to her. Meanwhile, K9, left at the base of the mountain, must climb the 7,000 stone steps of the temple to rejoin the doctor and Romana. Lee kills his guard and escapes, but instead of contacting his superiors, he attempts to contact the Japanese to tell them what he has discovered. He has served the Japanese since 1932, seeing in their society an order and structure he desires in his own. Sin locates him and cuts the power cable to the transmitter, but while trying to escape, Lee strikes Sin down with the live end of the cable. Hsien-ko, momentarily stunned by the surge of power through her link to Sin, sends Kwok to find and kill Lee, but then discovers that due to the power surge, she can no longer control Sin's bloodlust. Kwok and his men run into Sin in the corridors, and Kwok is forced to flee for his life when Sin begins slaughtering them indiscriminately. Sin then pursues Lee to the turbine control room, where Lee, unaware of the danger, fires at him with a German grenade launcher and hits the reactor turbines. As the reaction starts to run out of control, Lee flees and warns the approaching guards, none of whom are aware of the situation, that Hsien-ko has betrayed them. As the reactor control room begins to fill with radioactive steam, many of the guards turn on each other and a battle breaks out between members of the Tong, who no longer understand what is happening or who can be trusted. The doctor and Romana escape and join Hsien-ko in the reactor control room, where she is shamed when the doctor risks his life to repair the damage and prevent the reactor from becoming a nuclear bomb. He succeeds, but finds that the chain reaction explosions have damaged the structure of the mountain and its natural piezoelectric properties will now be enough to divert Greel's time cabinet. He and Romana try to return to the TARDIS but are attacked by Mr. Sin on the way. However, this time they are able to destroy it. Despite the doctor's efforts to convince her otherwise, Hsien-ko still intends to punish Greel for his deeds and goes to the temple with Kwok to await his arrival. But just as the doctor has predicted, the arrival of the time cabinet creates a temporal paradox centered upon Hsien-ko. The doctor uses the TARDIS to expel the time cabinet back into the Sigma beam, and it completes its journey. The temporal feedback is shorted through Hsien-ko's body, and she is incinerated before the horrified eyes of Quark. Quark tries to kill the doctor, but K9 arrives and stuns him in the nick of time. Wu encounters and shoots Lee, but has become sickened of violence and decides to spend the rest of his days as an ordinary nightclub owner. The doctor uses the TARDIS to bury the reactor under fast-drying concrete so the Japanese won't find it. Which brings us to the epilogue, which is also set in 1937. The Fourth Doctor and Romana set off on their quest once again, as Hsien-ko's death means that the Chronon interference is cleared up. But Quark remains alive and blames the Doctor for Hsien-ko's death, so he vows to avenge her. And that was it for that game session. Like I mentioned earlier, I was not the game master this time. I like Doctor Who, but I'm not an expert on it. So a friend of mine ran this one. At any rate, everyone involved had a good time. We hope that you had a good time hearing about it. If so, be sure to smash the like button, ring the bell so you know when we upload more content. Make sure you're subscribed since YouTube loves to unsubscribe people. And as always, be sure to leave us a comment as that really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. We hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.